is amazing what the power of debt will do to you as an entrepreneur.
Interesting. What do you mean by that?
Because when you take on a pile of debt over your head, and you're the one that's left holding the bag at the end of the day of debt, you're going to try to do whatever you can to get out of that debt. Right? You know, you want to get clear the debt and then free so you can start actually banking a bit of money if you can, right? So the power of debt will make you work.
Pushes you harder.
It pushes you harder.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone to this episode of Taking Action. I am your host, Michael Allen. Today I'm joined with Johnny Fillier as well as Kevin Vincent. Kevin is the owner of Newfound Sushi based in Corner Brook, Newfoundland. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
You're welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into the sushi business?
Okay, so I came back from BC, like I was saying earlier, I was in BC for 5 years and fell in love with sushi out there. Really at first when I started going to sushi restaurants, I didn't really care much for it. I wanted it all cooked.
Right.
But slowly I got into the sashimi and, you know, all the raw fish and stuff. So.
And I'll be honest, I'm still in that
the
cook phase right now.
Yeah, you're still a newbie.
Right.
Yeah.
I like Serrano.
I'm a sushi virgin. You like Serrano. But you'll get there. You'll get there, right? So anyway, I came back here and I just liked making it. I got into the kind of like the art of being creative and making sushi itself, right? It's kind of a learning experience that I've never done before. So, and then used to bring it to parties and you know, some people for weddings and stuff like that, and potlucks. And then someone asked me one time to bring sushi to a party. And I brought sushi. Someone else was there at the party, was going to open up a new grocery store in Corner Brook, Coleman's. And they said, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing for employment these days? And at the time I was on EI. Yeah. And so they said, come on down and we'll have a chat. So I came down, we had a chat and we agreed on so many days a week because they didn't know if it was going to fly or not because you're talking 2009.
Right. And how many days a week was it starting off?
So it started off, it was only supposed to be 3 days a week, 4 hours a day.
Okay.
And it turned out to be 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
So it was a hit.
It was a hit right off the bat. There was a new grocery store opened up, and I thought I was going to be in a back room just pumping out sushi, you know, putting the packets and put it on the shelf. But no, they put me right in the middle, which they call the fishbowl.
Okay.
Right in the deli area, which is cheese and the salads and sushi. So they never had sushi there before, and it just took off, man. It was, And at the time, I was doing like custom orders. Somebody wanted something, I'd make it. But it got to the point that it's like, okay, we need production. We need to get it out. So
every time I went there was no sushi left.
You show up at 4 o'clock when it was quitting time. And there was nothing left. Yeah. So I was making sushi all day, but there was nothing left at the end of the day. Yeah. And for me, it was like, I want to have something left on the shelf so someone could
get off work.
Yeah, when you get off work, right?
Yeah. Right.
So that's where it started.
Where did you go, or when did you know that this was going to be a viable business for yourself? When did you know you wanted to leave that business and do your own thing?
So I was at Coleman's for 3 years making sushi. And after the first year, this guy, Mike Jackson, he was running a Navigate program at it's a combination between College of North Atlantic and Memorial University or Grenfell campus in Corner Brook. And so he would come by, once every couple months, go, think about going on your own? Think about starting a restaurant? Okay. Kind of put the bug in my ear,
Yeah.
And so I thought about it and it's like, no, it's not ready, time's not right. So basically I was really fortunate that I got to create a market. The market was already there, but we didn't know it.
Right.
And then so I got to see what my customers liked and disliked, on Coleman's dime, really.
Yeah.
And then after 2 years, I was like, okay, you know what? Like, if I don't do it, somebody else is probably going to do it. So I kept going back to what my father used to say when I was a kid. He's like, there's no such thing as can't, right? Because you'll always try to convince yourself not to do something because whatever reason, right?
Yeah, I say that to my daughter all the time. I actually don't even let her use that word. I say we don't use can't in this family.
We weren't allowed to use it either. Yeah. And then I always used to tell myself too, is like when I was in the guiding industry, I guided this guy. He had hiked from Florida all the way up the whole Appalachian Trail, up through Maine, every step of the way. And then he came over here and he hiked all the way from the west coast, all the way to the northern peninsula, right out, got a boat ride out to Bell Island out there.
Wow.
And so he came to me when I had a little sea kayaking shop, and he asked me if I could guide him on the long range in the North Rim, right? And one of the things he said was, quit thinking to do and do. And that stuck with me. So it was no such thing as can't, and quit thinking to do and do. And I was just like, okay, put my head down. I wrote a business plan. And so I was at Coleman's for just short of 3 years, 2 years, 11 months. And then I went on my own. So
when you went on your own, did you earn enough capital working at Coleman's to do it yourself, or did you need...
No, man. So I had a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
I was 40 years old when I went on my own.
Right.
So been in business 12 years. So I was like, man, I need to get money somehow. So I went to banks with a business plan, or like, good business plan, but we're not loaning money, your traditional banks, not loaning money out to somebody who wants to start a restaurant. Like, there's 1% success rate or something, or first, so many restaurants fail in the first year. So it was highly volatile, so they wouldn't look at it. So BDC, Business Development Bank Canada, they said, okay, we love your business plan. It's actually the most intense business plan we've ever seen.
Wow.
He said, some fishermen come in here with their business plan written down on a piece of loose leaf. Right? So I guess I went up a bit in terms of a loose leaf paper business plan. But they said, okay, how much are you looking for? I said, I need like 50,000. I think it was 50 or 70, whatever it was. And then they said, well, you need to be able to raise enough capital to leverage that. So I just went around to my hometown here in Steadybrook and knocked on doors and gave people that I thought might have a bit of expendable cash or would be looking investing into a business. I gave them my zip drive, and so I went back a week later, and I think it was maybe 8 people.
Okay. And
the last person, everybody turned me down. They were like, "No, I love your business plan. I like the idea, but we're out. We're out."
Right.
And the last one I went to, he's like, he said, "Come on in. I like your business plan. It's a great idea. How much are you looking for?" And I needed something like 11,000 at the time to leverage the other 50 or whatever it was. And he's like, "Yeah, well, what's my return on my investment?" And I was like, I never even thought about investments or return on investment or any of that stuff, right? I'm like, I really need this, right? Yeah. I'll double your money in 2 years.
Yeah.
And so he's like, "That's all you need?" Like, "Yep, that's it, man. I wasn't going to ask for more." So anyway, he said, "All right, no problem." Handshake, and after 2 years, I gave him a check for $22,000, and
wow.
Yeah.
Loose leaf contract?
Loose leaf handshake contract. Yeah.
It's amazing that you were that dedicated to the business. One that has such a low success rate. And I mentioned before that my co-host Ryan is famous for saying that he would never start a sit-down restaurant just because of that same reason. But I mean, you've done it. You combated the odds, and you've made it successful, and you paid that guy back in 2 years.
In 2 years,
that's wild.
Yeah. So.
Good for you.
And why I wanted to, thank you, but why I wanted to do a sit-down restaurant is because when I was at Coleman's, I'd make sushi all day, and I would see people come and pick up the sushi, and they'd leave. I never got to see them eat their sushi. Yeah. I never got to see them enjoy what I was making. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, because I was passionate about it. Right. And I wanted to see the look on their face.
The reaction.
I like the eye roll, and then, they get there with their wasabi and their ginger and their soy sauce.
And they probably didn't know what they were eating either.
No. Yeah, some of them didn't, right?
For sure.
Repeat customers kept coming back. And so, it's been a good experience.
Would you say that the most of your customers are repeat customers, or are they? I mean, it's probably the only sushi place on this side of the island, is it, or is there more?
It's the only sushi place this side of St. John's.
Yeah. No way.
Or Mount Pearl, St. John's.
Wow. Yeah.
Avalon. Yeah.
Okay.
So a lot of repeat customers, and summertime and tourism time, you get a spike of travelers coming through, and then what happens is your locals that are repeat customers, they're gone on their summer vacations, and then the void gets filled with travelers, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And tourists, and so
Interesting.
yeah. But they stuck with me because early days it was like you had to wait a long time for me to make sushi, man.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. You mentioned there was long lineups in the
At
early
a grocery
days.
store, yeah.
Right.
And so that was because I was just super slow at it, and I was used to making it. It's a big difference being a home cook and cooking for a few people, and then making sushi or cooking for somebody on a commercial basis,
Right.
Right. And then they want to be in and out within a 2-hour period,
Yeah.
and so it's a big difference there. So you got to have your, everything set up, ready to go, and
Yeah. It's not fast food.
it's not fast food. No, it's definitely
No.
not fast food. Yeah, feel good food.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, it's definitely worth the wait for sure.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I'm going to check it out before I leave and go back to St. John's for sure, because I do love sushi. Even though I am a novice, I do love sushi, so I'll certainly come out and check it out, and I'll let you see my face as I eat it. Yeah, regardless of what you feed me, I'll eat it.
Well, my staff are amazing. I've had
Yeah.
staff there with me since I started.
Right.
Right.
You said you leveraged your staff because in the early days you weren't.
Yes, so I never worked in the restaurant industry, right? Now I did a small stint of serving at Strawberry Hill, but that wasn't really customers coming in off the street. That was when they were getting Humber Valley Resort on the go, and so they had plane loads of Irish and English people coming over for like it was a 4 or 6. It was a 4-day buying trip, we'll say, right? So everything was pre-fixed. So except for choose between chicken and steak or something, but everything else you just had to serve. So it wasn't like your regular fast restaurant.
Right.
Was Coleman's trying to keep you there? Like when you were deciding to leave?
No, they never know. So it came down to I used to get Wednesdays off and then an hour off for lunch, right?
Yeah.
So I'm trying to set up a business while I'm working full time.
Yeah,
right.
So I get the Wednesdays off. So I knew that was midweek. Government offices are open. So there's a lot of boxes you got to check when you start your own business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's permits and there's all kinds of things that you need to do. So I would run around. Wednesdays, I would meet with 2 guys that kind of help me with the business plan phase. And it's funny because I said, oh man, this is a lot of work. The business plan is, because I go in with all their questions answered on a Wednesday, and then they give me a ton more thing I need to work on, right?
Yeah.
So they really wanted me to work my way through the business plan.
So they were mentors of yours.
They were mentors, yeah.
And
Yeah.
what did those 2 individuals?
So, Mike Jackson, he was with Navigate. He then moved on to the city, and now he's with another, I think, a bank. Right?
Okay.
And then Billy Newell, he was with Navigate. So it was a transfer between the two. So Billy Newell was coming in when Mike Jackson was leaving to go to the city. So I had both of their ears,
Right. Yeah.
so, which was great because, and so we worked through the business plan together. And I think without those guys, I wouldn't even got off the ground or
Right.
even
Yeah.
work. Because it's a daunting task, your business plan, because you got every little thing from insurance to the garbage collection to,
Yeah.
all your food costs and, all your wages and labor and all that sort of stuff. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so it was good for them. But in terms of leveraging my staff, they already worked in the industry. So they had a little bit of experience in the industry. So, they would basically, I knew the customer service that I wanted to get at and the level of food quality. And so they basically helped me with it along the way, right? And so
Right.
some of them are still there today.
Right. And I kind of like that you never had any experience in the industry before getting into it, because I'm very much the same way. I've got a bucket list full of things that I'm capable of doing, but oftentimes I won't let the fact that I don't know something or I haven't been educated in that field stop me from getting into it. Like when I got into TV show production, I didn't really know a thing about. I didn't go to school for
jump
it.
in, right?
I just
Yeah.
jumped
Yeah,
in.
you
I
jump in
knew I
feet
had
first.
something I wanted to do because what I wanted wasn't available. So I said, okay, I'll do it myself. And I seen someone else do it, which is a big thing for me. I'm a big rock climber. I've been climbing for over 20 years. And a lot of times when you're climbing, you're struggling against a problem. You can't do it, and you're just throwing yourself against this wall.
Yeah.
The moment somebody else comes along and does it, and you see that it's possible, like a switch flips, and now you can do it.
Yeah,
Right?
you learn by doing
Yeah.
and seeing and then replicating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm curious though, Can you tell me a little bit about the different grades of sushi and the grades of fish? Is it different from what you would buy at a grocery store? And then what are those grades?
Yeah, so there is a sushi grade, and some people, call it a marketing ploy, a marketing term, or whatever. It is true. There is sushi grade fish because you want to get the best quality and the freshest as possible for your sushi, right? You don't want to be serving stuff that's old and, deteriorating or what start to smell, right? They say you walk into a sushi restaurant, you smell fish, turn around and walk out.
Right.
Right? So it shouldn't smell like you smell that fish breaking down. But for me, what I do is I'll take the whole fish and I'll break it down myself. So I have full control of the process of butchering the fish, and doing it in a really sanitized way. So because if you buy it at a store or a grocery store, you don't know where it's been, what it's been through. I mean, obviously there's your FDA and your food inspection, and all that sort of stuff. But I don't know. You want to take all the precautions for your customers so that nothing gets passed on. Any bacteria or whatever.
Right. So you usually buy whole fish and then you butcher it yourself.
Bought a whole fish. Like I just purchased a 300-pound bluefin tuna the other day and butchered the whole thing. It took me 6 hours to break it down into large chunks. And so much of that I kept fresh for this week and moving into the next week. But the rest of it, I get frozen down, blast frozen at minus 60. Yeah. For the quality of freshness.
Right. Is that what you have here?
So this is actually scales from the tuna the other night. I just kept a few, knowing that I was going to be here with you today. So that's actually a scale that sits in between the skin and the connective tissue that holds, like the sinew, we'll call it, right?
Okay.
And that's the plates, the armor plating of a tuna. And it's usually along the back, towards, above, or in front of the dorsal fin.
Yeah, it's very hard, almost like a plastic.
Yeah. Like they all sit on top of each other, right? So when the tuna moves, these move.
Okay. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So it must be a bit of pain to get these off of that fish.
Well, I figured out a way over the years because I've been butchering bluefin since 2014.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I know that a big tuna, like the biggest one I've had was 700 pounds.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was huge, right?
Yeah.
And so
is that locally?
Locally, yeah.
Okay.
And you only get massive tuna here. Like to try to get anything under 400 pounds is rare in Newfoundland. Yeah. Like we get a different part of the stock. I usually get tuna from PEI because they're a smaller fish, and the broker I buy it from, he knows what I'm looking for, the right amount of fat content, the right amount of red meat, and so I can trust them and I know what I'm getting, right?
So you always use a broker?
Not all the time, no. For here, as the fishermen will call me. I had 3 calls last week from fishermen because now it's tuna season in Newfoundland, and they're trying to offload their tuna. And some of them are selling it to restaurants, and some of them are actually just piecing it out and selling to the local people, which is great because the more people that get into eating it, then and to realize what it is not cat food.
Right, yeah.
Because the longest time, up until the 70s, it was only looked at as pretty much cat food.
Canned tuna.
Canned tuna, So there's all different kinds of tuna, obviously.
Yeah.
Bluefin is the top apex predator in the ocean, and it's that's the one that the Japanese, they sell for. I mean, the most expensive bluefin tuna went for $3.3 million a few years ago.
No way.
That's insane. How much weight? What's the weight on that?
I think that one was somewhere maybe 500 pounds.
Right, so it doesn't go into weight. It's more
no,
the quality.
it's a quality
the fat content.
Yeah, the fat content, and it should be shaped like a football, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And not long and skinny, right?
So what would the 700-pound one you had a few years ago go for?
I can't even remember what I paid for that. I think I paid around maybe $16 a pound.
Okay.
Right.
So now you have to take that and then convert that into something that's profitable for yourself as well.
So then when you break it down, you take out the spine, you take off the skin, you take off all the connective tissue, and when you just got the meat left, then that your yield for that tuna it goes way down.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you said, what, 300-pound tuna the
300
other day?
pound, and
so when was left, it's just pure meat? How much do you know to
200
weight?
pounds.
200?
So about 100 pounds
of-
goes in the dumpster.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? So you're paying $20
So you're
a
cutting
pound
off
for 100
every
pounds.
little bit of meat.
So
bit of meat
yeah,
you can.
that's why
That's right,
sushi's
yeah.
not cheap, right?
Right.
Because the more, and also like for me to take the whole fish, I have control over it, like you say, sushi grade. Also, if I was to buy that fish, like basically I intercepted it going to Japan, right?
Yeah.
So if that went to Japan, right away it's like a $1,500 fee for the fisherman to send it to Japan.
Okay.
Because the box that it goes in, the tuna coffin,
Yeah.
the ice, and then the flight.
Yeah.
Right.
And then it gets
wow.
over to Japan, and that fish could go for like $60,000-$70,000, and the tuna, and the fisherman gets a good chunk of that.
Yeah.
Or it may not be worth anything.
Right.
It may be just poor quality.
So it's a
because
little risky for them to ship it.
It's very risky.
So they would
yeah.
rather sell it here.
They'd rather sell it locally for $8-10 a pound than if they were to sell it, to send it to Japan and take their chances. Unless they
Interesting.
know, and there's ways to tell if it's going to be a good fish, and that's why you go through a broker sometimes, or buyer,
Yeah.
is they'll take a sashimo, which is like a core sample that goes right through the side of the tuna.
Okay.
And it takes a core sample out, and they'll put it on a white sheet of paper, let's say, and they'll pull it out, and the core sample of it, and it'll go from like a light, it could be dark red meat, means there's no real fat content in it, or it could be a really light pinkish color to, and that means there's more fat content in it, right?
Right.
So when you look at a steak, you're looking for the marbling,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So, yeah, and then also the tail, they cut the tail, and then you rub your fingers on the tail part that's cut, and the amount of fat that you feel, the grease you feel on your
really,
hand,
yeah.
you know that it's going to be a fair bit of
Right.
fat content in it. So there's a
Interesting.
bunch of these little things I've
Yeah.
learned over the years. That
Right. And you didn't
the
have
average
that
person-
background getting into it.
No, so it's been a learning experience all the way, right? So for me, life is about learning,
Yeah.
and experiencing new things, and it can be a full life experience. Like, I could do this till I'm dead and still not know everything,
Yeah.
right? Because traditional sushi is basically rice and fish, and really what it comes down to in Japan is the quality of the rice and the treating that you put on the rice, the vinegar, sugar, salt mixture that goes on the rice that makes the difference from one restaurant to another.
Interesting.
Yeah, so there's a lot.
So
to it.
what's unique about Newfound Sushi, and what have you tried to add to that kind of separates it from the other sushi places in Newfoundland?
So the other sushi places in Newfoundland are just buying it. They're buying pretty much 100% of their fish or seafood products from companies that are at a base out of Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, and it's not local. So what we do is all local as much as possible.
yeah.
So I mean, it makes sense. Look at all the fish plants that are around. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot less now than there used to be, but just Corner Brook alone, I got Berries down the road. It's only a 5-minute drive from the shop to Berries,
Right.
and I can go pick up all kinds of seafood.
Yeah.
Right? Mackerel, crab, lobster, shrimp. There's all kinds of stuff you can pick up. Capelin, whatever you want, redfish, and so then I can take that local product and then turn it into and use Japanese style cooking techniques or Japanese style recipes, and then that's what sets us apart from everywhere else. Is,
Interesting.
Yeah,
I
now
love that.
we'll bring in stuff that if I can't get bluefin tuna, I'll use yellowfin tuna.
Yeah.
But that's from some other place in the world, right?
Right.
And that's
Yeah,
what other
yellowfin's
places.
not local, right?
Yellowfin is not local.
Right.
We don't get yellowfin this far north in the
Right.
Atlantic, but you get them I got them out of Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Right. So, but I will take the mackerel, and usually like these other sushi restaurants, it's called Saba Shime. So Saba is mackerel in Japanese, and Shime is the way it's been treated. So with mackerel, it's supposed to be either cooked or treated in a brine of vinegar, we'll say. And the reason being is because they could have parasites in amongst the stomach,
Right.
which could get into the meat,
Right.
right? So you got to kill that.
Yeah.
So we take it from the whole fish, again, like I said before, and we break it down into fillets, then we'll salt it for a short period of time, wash off the salt with vinegar, and then let it sit in a vinegar, mirin, sugar solution for about an hour. Then we take it and take all the bones out of it.
Okay.
Then you Peel off that protective layer on the outside, and then we slice it up for sashimi or nigiri. Right?
That's something I've always wondered about, is the quality of the salmon that I buy. Because salmon is one thing that we cook a lot of in my house. And I'm always curious to how much pesticide, or not pesticides, but how much
pesticides are there.
are in that salmon that we're eating, and how important is it to have it cooked?
I wouldn't eat a piece of farm salmon if my life depended on it.
Really? Wow.
I tell you what. So I stood up against I took it off my menu back in February. I was going to wait. Like, I got a lot of fishermen friends that fish salmon, and they've been telling me over the years, look, man, I can't believe you serve that stuff. It's garbage. It's farmed. They're just feedlots in the ocean.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'll let my customers make the decision on that, right? And if I see the numbers dropping in my sales of salmon, then it's easy for me just to take it off the menu, because why would I have a fish that's going to sit there and spoil if I'm not making any money from it, right? So I got to the point, I read this book called Salmon Wars.
Okay.
And it talks as a deep dive into the underbelly of the salmon industry. And it's fucking gross, man. It is gross, These are diseased fish that are swimming around in these cages, and they're just giant feedlots, and they have millions of fish in one cage.
Yeah.
And they're just swimming around. You see a salmon in the grocery store, you'll notice there's fins on one side, there's no fins on this side, because this side's rubbed off from hitting the net going around, right? And there's like parasites, there's lice, right? Sea lice, you get them on fresh salmon that are coming up the river. So sea lice exist in the ocean.
Yeah.
And if you're a salmon fisherman, you'll know how fresh that salmon is, or how long it's been in the river if there's sea lice on it. Because as soon as it hits the fresh water, the sea lice pretty much fall off. Right?
Okay.
So these salmon in the grocery stores, and the salmon that these farms are producing on the south coast of Newfoundland are riddled with sea lice. So then they got to use a pesticide to kill the sea lice.
Gotcha.
So that is supposed to be, when they use a pesticide, those pesticides, you cannot eat that salmon for up to a year. Right? 2 years to grow a salmon, from the time it goes from the hatchery to, And so there's other stuff too, like regular salmon aren't fatty like the stuff you buy in the grocery store.
Yeah, because what are they eating? Like this pellets, right?
They're eating pellets.
Yeah.
And so what they do is they put a coloring in the last bit of feed into the pellets, so it colors the fish. And you can just Google it. You'll see that any of these aquaculture companies, they can choose from whatever palette color they want, of orange to pink to red.
Wow.
And they'll get that into their feed. And then also, there's a couple other reasons too. I'm on a rant here now.
I love it.
It's good.
No, and it gets the word out too, because so they're also taking fish from other countries, like poorer countries, like North Africa, along that coast, right? And South America, and all over the place. And they're using what that industry calls trash fish. And trash fish, they're saying it's trash fish, nobody wants it. But it's mackerel, it's herring, it's anchovies, it's sardines, all these smaller fish that could feed these poorer countries.
Right.
But they're scooping all this up with these big trawlers, right? And they're taking it and sending it to these, to the industry or whatever that makes the feed.
Like a processing plant.
The processing plant, And then they grind all that stuff up and add more of this and that, and more whatever into it. And then if you think about a fish or any animal, toxins get harbored in the fat, right? So a salmon, a farm salmon, has somewhere between 20 and like 40% fat. Okay, so you're taking all these fish that could be swimming around in this polluted waters, and the toxins that's being pumped out of factories and all these areas that are not as regulated as Canada and the US,
Right.
is getting into these fish. And then you're concentrating it into pellets, and then you're feeding those pellets to the salmon.
Right.
And they're growing it, and those toxins are getting stored in the fat of these salmon, and then we're eating it.
I heard that the dark part of salmon, or that brown part, is where a lot of the toxins are stored. Do you know
That's
if
the
that's
bloodline.
True? Okay.
That's the bloodline.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where the blood runs up and down.
So it's
Tuna
just in
is
the
same
fat.
way.
Yeah,
It's stored in the fat mainly.
And so what's the difference between the wild caught salmon and the farmed salmon? Is there a huge difference, or are all salmon pretty much infected
No,
now?
well, it depends. Like here we only have Atlantic salmon. wild Atlantic salmon, right? So there is no fishery. There is a small indigenous fishery up north, and the France, St. Pierre-Miquelon, they have a small fishery as well. But other than that, there's no commercial fishery. So any salmon that you see in any grocery store around in Newfoundland, it'll say, it won't say farm salmon. It'll say fresh Atlantic salmon,
right?
Which is bullshit. It is Atlantic salmon, and some of these salmon have been genetically modified to grow
faster, chickens.
Like chickens. The same thing, right? So not only the salmon, but also what's underneath these cages in the ocean. They put them right at the mouths of rivers, right in the bays. And right now, there's a huge expansion on the whole south coast of Newfoundland to put more of these salmon farms in. In 2019, Maui, I think it was, had a massive die-off of salmon. 3.2 million salmon died off. Remember that back on the news when they were pumping all this pink stuff out of the cages into the water? That was salmon. That died off. Apparently, it got too warm and they died off. So there's a lot going on there with that industry that most people don't know about. And the big one that I'd like to see changed is in the grocery store, should say farmed Atlantic salmon,
100%.
not fresh Atlantic salmon. So everyone's being duped on it, right?
100%. And that's unanimous throughout the food industry.
Yes.
Like for example, when you see 100% apple juice or 100% orange juice or 100% beef, apparently, I can't validate this, but apparently 100% is the name of a corporation.
That's like 100% beef from McDonald's.
Right.
It came from the corporation 100% beef.
It's so misleading.
It's just, oh man, the more deep dive you get into it and you go down that rabbit hole, it's like, we've been lied to.
Absolutely.
So I couldn't take it anymore after reading the book, doing my own research on it. I was like, that's it. I'm done with farm salmon. I'm not ever serving it again. So I managed to source out salmon from BC and Alaska, and I get it shipped down once every 2 weeks. I get 100 pounds, and it's pretty much zero fat. Right. So I understand the industry, like the restaurant industry, using the farm salmon. It's cheaper. So you're getting more yield, more value out of it. It's easy to cook because it's full of fat. It's not going to stick to your pan. You don't even have to put any oil in the pan. It just renders out the fat, right? So I can understand that. And so I'm kind of like stuck my head up. I'm not using this anymore. I was hoping other people would. No. Never heard of anybody saying, "Oh yeah, we'll jump on board with you."
No, a couple of my relatives say who are like fish salmon all the time, and they're like, we like the taste of farm salmon better.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Really?
Well, obviously, because they're made to taste better.
It's made to taste better. Oh yeah, there's a full science behind it.
Whatever they got in it.
Yeah.
Right.
So so we have BC. You probably heard on the news lately this summer, the spring and summer, that they were by 2025 they were supposed to get rid of all salmon farms. All right. Now these salmon farms are owned mainly by European corporations. Right. So Maui and a couple other ones there that they've been kicked out of their own country because of their poor farming practices.
Wow.
And then they've come over to Canada and set up, and they've been there in 30 years in BC or more. And then so they're being kicked out of there. And our Prime Minister, Trudeau, he said, okay, we'll let it go another 5 years, but you need to be out in 5 years. So then we get our Jerry Byrne here, right? Local politician. He's now back in the fisheries portfolio. But he's saying, come on in. If you leave BC, come on our coast.
Oh, interesting.
Well, and they actually, if the company loses 3.2 million salmon, our provincial government, which is our taxpayers' dollars, are going to fund that corporation.
Wow.
To cover the cost of their loss.
Wow. And so
scary, man.
Would they be would that money then stay in Newfoundland? Or I guess if they're an international corporation, that money would be leaving. So that's taxpayers' dollars leaving Newfoundland and leaving Canada.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot there. That has to be a whole discussion in itself.
No, I kind of went off on a rant there, but
no, I appreciate
it just kind of needs to be brought to light so people know what's going on.
100%.
And like the whole expansion on the south coast, it's happening. And they're already, you got White Bear River that they're going to put these pens in. They're talking about it. They've already got bolts put into the rocks to anchor these pens. Like
So
they're
those
there.
pins can't move around? Like
No,
they don't want them to move, obviously.
No,
Yeah.
they don't want them to move.
Right.
They-
So
they-
all their waste is just
goes down,
Down.
and you think about the lobster fishermen that are after Ramia, Burgeo.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
going to destroy the lobster
Yeah.
because of the pesticides that they use
Yeah.
and all this food, all the crap that goes into this feed is falling to the bottom of the ocean. It's creating dead zones.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's
So-
like they're already seeing it off of Conn River.
Yeah.
Something has to be done. It sounds like it's so far all around a negative thing.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah. There's no need for it. You can be doing it on land in closed circuit containment tanks.
Yeah.
It can be done.
Smaller.
It's going to cost
Yeah.
more because you're not using our ocean as the garbage dump.
Right.
You got to do it. You got to take care with filters,
Yeah.
regulate the temperatures, all this sort of stuff. But if these guys, if they're going to get into this, do it right.
Yeah.
Don't be doing it, using the ocean
No
as a toilet
respect,
bowl,
right?
man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's no respect.
I
They
can't
just come
remember
in and
last
take
time-
and go.
Can't remember the last time I had a salmon, to be honest. Like I went to the store and bought one.
It's gross.
And I've never had like sushi salmon roll or anything at your
No.
place.
Well, you can now.
You can now,
Yeah,
yeah.
because it's all
Well, I didn't know
sockeye,
that.
it's wild.
So it's wild from BC.
Yeah.
Nice.
I got to say, actually,
Yeah.
one of our favorite dishes, mine and my daughter's, from our favorite sushi place in St. John's, is salmon tempura. It's a cooked salmon, but still, I'm curious to know is where they get their salmon
The same
from.
place I used to get it from.
It's
Oh,
farm.
maybe.
for
Yeah,
sure.
here in Newfoundland, it's farm.
Okay.
And never used to say it, but I used to get farm salmon, 50-pound boxes. In the summer, I go through 100 pounds a week. Right? And head on, you're basically taking, beside the gut being taken out, you're processing the whole thing. But I looked at the last box that came in back in February. I still got the tag at my office at the shop, and it says, not for raw consumption,
Wow.
must be cooked.
Right.
Wow. I wonder if that's why they cook that dish. Because
Well,
the
there's-
one we get is cooked. It's tempura.
Yeah,
right? So-
see, there's no real sushi regulations in Newfoundland yet. Okay? In every other province, a lot of them, you have to freeze all the fish before you can serve it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that something that you would
Something to do.
advocate for? You would like to see these regulations, or are you happy now with the way things are?
Well, I mean, if you're going to use farm salmon, you shouldn't be using it in the first place. But if you're going to use it, at least freeze it and or cook it.
Yeah.
But it still is not getting rid of the toxins that's in it.
Right.
And it's still, you're supporting that industry.
Yeah.
That is these
Not enough
corporations.
people really know. You know?
Not enough people
Yeah.
really know. They just go
Yeah.
to day to day and they just pick up some salmon
Yeah.
for supper
Yeah.
and that's it.
Atlantic
But if-
salmon.
Atlantic salmon. But if
Awesome.
you put farm salmon on it,
Yeah.
and people
Oh,
are
yeah.
most likely going to go, wow, farm? What do you mean by farm? I thought it was, and like I
Yeah.
used to get travelers, tourists come in here all the time, like, fresh Atlantic salmon, awesome, man, this is
Yeah.
awesome. And I'm
Yeah.
like, it's farm salmon. And our staff would tell them it's all
Yeah.
farm salmon.
Right.
You're not going to get Atlantic
Yeah.
salmon that's not farmed.
Right.
Bit of a letdown, really.
It's a
you know?
letdown, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but in their mind, they think
Yes.
Newfoundland, oceans all around
Obviously,
us.
you're gonna think
It's
that,
got to be
yeah.
fresh.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, I thought that myself. I didn't think about it too much. As I said, still new into the sushi world. But even for a Newfoundlander, I was completely duped by that. So I'm thankful that you brought that to light.
Yeah, oh man, you're welcome.
Yeah.
The more people I can tell, the better. Yeah.
Yeah.
That should be
It's
changed.
alarming. It's
Yeah.
very alarming with these salmon farms. I don't want to see them on the south coast. I'm really hoping right now there's supposed to be a protected marine area put in by the national parks on Burgeo.
Okay,
And it's
yeah.
supposed to take in from, I think it's Grey River to Lapoil, some in that area. But the big rush is on with these salmon farms and our government to steamroll through these fish farms in every one of those bays that's got a river that comes out, right? Now the thing about, you have these farm salmon that escape from nets,
Yes.
tens and thousands of them.
Right
They
at
go
the
up
mouth of a river where all the fresh Atlantic wild salmon are swimming up.
Exactly. And so they're
Right.
going up and they're very aggressive. They're competing for the
Yeah.
same food. They're eating the eggs of the wild salmon
Oh.
and the young smolt. And not only that, they're spreading disease,
Yeah.
right? And then so when the smolt come out to go to the ocean, or once they get juvenile, they get to the size that they need
Yeah.
to go to the ocean for the next few years. they got to go past these farms that are riddled with sea lice. So all it takes is like 2 or 3 sea lice on a small smolt to kill it.
Wow.
It don't even make it past the bay.
Right.
Doesn't even get a chance.
Yeah, that's like I didn't really think about it. That's frustrating as hell.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It is. It's sad. It's
Yeah.
sad. And it's
Especially if we're
at a
replacing
sight
it,
out of
you know?
mind,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
at a sight out of mind.
Yeah.
If it was
South
right
Coast
here,
is perfect.
it's
right?
perfect for
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's one thing we could do if we were able to start taking a step in the right direction, even if it's a small step in the right direction?
Okay. One will be stop eating farm salmon. 2, write your local politician and tell them why you don't want to support this industry.
Right.
Right? Those 2 big ones right there. And tell other people about what's going on. Because it's not only the farming salmon, it's also the windmills that are going on. I'm not against progression and industry, but we got them coming over here and they're going to put roads all through these pristine areas. And they're giving away land left, right, and center to these, again, multinational corporations that aren't even from the area for the benefit of other countries,
Yeah.
Right.
like Germany and Europe. So they can take, they're taking the hydrogen and turn it into ammonia, shipping it over there to use as fertilizer. People just think it's going to be for hydrogen cars,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So
That's what it's
And they're
used for.
keeping their country pristine.
they're keeping their country pristine and they're
Right.
ruining our
Yeah,
country.
exactly.
Right? So we're giving it away again. That's Newfoundlanders, poor Newfoundlanders, we got nothing here, so we'll give it away.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm curious now because I've heard of this $600 million contract between Canada and Germany to build these wind turbines with the intent of, I guess, creating hydrogen. And I was assuming that it was
Hydrogen fuel.
Hydrogen fuel,
yeah.
yeah, some of it.
Yeah.
Right. And do you think that's going to be the main use, or is that to create more pesticides and ammonia, like you were saying?
Well, there you go. You're gonna be, it's to grow crops. So you're gonna be creating nitrogen or hydrogen or whatever to make ammonia, and then they're gonna put this stuff on crops to grow more crops, or
Interesting.
more wheat and more whatever, right? So, yeah, and why wouldn't we just do it ourselves?
Yeah.
Right.
Why wouldn't we put up windmills so that, like, we got Muskrat Falls, a big boondoggle up there.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we just use the windmills to power our own energy, and then any excess can go to Nova Scotia and Atlantic
Sell
Canada
it,
and
yeah.
that loop or whatever they're talking about.
Absolutely.
Sell it off.
Yeah.
Rather than our taxpayers, Muskrat Falls, our great grandkids would be paying for that, right?
Yeah.
Actually, I have a great documentary for you might enjoy. Have you ever watched The Need to Grow?
I might have.
It's a great documentary if you haven't seen it. And in it, they talk about a new type of power generation. So they basically build this greenhouse on steroids. They call it the green powerhouse. It's basically a greenhouse with an incinerator hooked up to it. They take waste and feed it to the incinerator, and they grow algae in this
Yes, I
greenhouse.
saw this one. Yes.
Really, really
Brilliant.
cool.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So the waste product of this closed loop system is electricity. You can power up to 100 homes off of its waste.
Wow.
It's absolutely amazing.
That's the one that burned down, right?
Yeah.
Somehow. It
Somehow
just-
burned down. Yeah. Really, really good documentary.
Yeah, it's a
The
great
Need to Grow.
documentary. Yeah.
If you haven't seen it,
I
definitely
haven't seen it.
suggest watching
I
it.
will, yeah.
Yeah.
Kevin, is there anything that you want to communicate to our viewers that we haven't really chatted about yet? And I would like to get our recurring segment on the show, which is an actionable takeaway, something that you might have learned in business that you could suggest to somebody that they could employ in their lives right now.
If you're going to get into business,
I like how this is starting.
yeah, you be prepared. I'll tell you, I asked advice for my grandfather-in-law, and because he was a businessman in Corner of Kabasha, and I asked him, I said, "You got any advice?" He said, "Well, be prepared not to see your family, because it was a restaurant, and you got to be there, 16, 18 hours a day.
Yeah.
Don't let that, defer you from starting a business. But I think just follow your passion. It's a great learning experience. And like my father used to say, there's no such thing as can't. Don't tell yourself you can't do something, because you can do it. And my mom used to say, you can do whatever you can put your mind to, right?
Yeah.
So we're only limited to ourselves and telling ourselves that we can't do something. So if you say you can do it, you're going to do it. And then the other one is quit thinking about doing something and just do it.
Yeah.
Like for me, ignorance is bliss,
Yeah.
man. I didn't open a restaurant until I was 40. I never worked in a restaurant. I just went and did it.
Yeah.
And so you just make it happen.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's really successful.
And it's worked out, you know. And another one is amazing what the power of debt will do to you as an entrepreneur.
Interesting. What do you mean
Because
by that?
when you take on a pile of debt over your head, and you're the one that's left holding the bag at the end of the day of debt, you're going to try to do whatever you can to get out of that debt.
Right.
Right? You know, you want to get clear the debt and then free so you can start actually banking a bit of money if you can, right? So the power of debt will make you work.
Pushes you harder.
It pushes you harder.
Yeah.
And like if you have something handed to you, it doesn't matter, whatever. But if you got
Easy
that
come.
debt over your head, you're going to do whatever it takes to make it happen. So
Right.
I think that's the success of a lot of entrepreneurs is that, you know, they're all in. When you go in that far in debt, then you're all in, and
Right.
you
Yeah.
have to climb your way out of it. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And what a lot of people don't realize is that when you're first starting and you sign for debt, the bank holds you personally accountable as well. So it's not like you can just write off that corporation and then the debt goes away. Usually the owner is responsible.
There's a certain amount, not all of it. If it's so, another one, if you're going to start a business, it's good to incorporate right away, because incorporate a company, it's its own entity,
Right.
right? It's not your Johnny Fillier. Taxes is your
Sole
personal
proprietor,
taxes,
yeah.
sole proprietor. It's a corporation that stands on its own feet, right? So if it fails,
not
you're not responsible for all that debt, but you're responsible for some. You won't lose your house
Yeah.
and your car, right?
Yeah.
But I just felt that there was a lot of pressure that I put pressure on myself anyway, and that's, I think, just the way I am as a person.
It's a good thing anyway.
It's a good thing,
Yeah.
yeah, because you're always looking for like efficiencies or to improve on deficiencies in your business, right? How can I streamline it? How can I make things work a little bit better? And I mean, you had a good day. For me, I say I have a good day if I can cut down maybe 2 seconds on a sushi roll.
Right.
Because you times that by 150 sushi rolls, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you just save so much that you can spend that time doing something else. And not home with your family, but something else, like prepping something else or
Yeah.
whatever, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's a sacrifice as an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
you know? You sacrifice your time. You're sacrificing your time for money, but you're sacrificing your time now with your kids, if you have children, for later on, for gain later,
Yeah.
you know? So you can probably, you know, maybe leave some sort of a legacy for them or something, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I see my kids for breakfast for 15 minutes in the morning before they went to school. And that was like that for years. I would get up, get them breakfast, kiss goodbye. They're gone to school. I'm gone to work.
Yeah.
I wouldn't see them till the next morning because I got home. I was at work at 8 in the morning. I get home at like maybe 1 in the night and then go to sleep, get up, do it again, 15 minutes in the morning, right? So I'm really lucky because I had a wife that was very supportive and she's still supportive.
Yeah.
And she was there to do everything else.
Right.
So
And how long do you spend at your business nowadays?
I'm a 9 to 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to get to the point where I managed my business and it didn't manage me. Right. So I got a really good team down there. And I was telling you earlier, I've got people that have been with me. Sarah's been with me 12 years. So she's server supervisor. You know, the average time spent in the restaurant for an average person is roughly 8 to 10 years right now. And for a restaurant, that's rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I have 14 staff.
Yeah.
You know,
Wow.
I think that your dishwashers and kitchen help, they come and go.
Yeah.
But you know, the average, like I said, is 8 to 10 years, and some is around 4 or 5 years. So
Yeah.
usually people are like in and out with a
Yeah.
restaurant. But so I've also learned, the takeaway too would be treat people the way you want to be treated. You know, and give them respect.
Yeah.
And also work with the days are gone with here's a schedule, that's it, take it or leave it, I'll find somebody else.
Right.
There's no one
Yeah.
lined up out the door looking for work.
Yeah.
It's hard to get employees, so you got to work with your employees and try to find out what works well for them. If that means working them 3 days a week, they want to work 3 days a week, that's fine. You got a family life, 3 days a week works for you,
Yeah.
we'll go with that. We'll get somebody else to fill in the other time, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, I always say employees are the most valuable asset of a business.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
You got to
100%.
invest in them.
Yeah, you have to invest in your employees, treat them right, and then in turn, you know, hopefully they treat you right.
Yeah.
And so did I say always put back into your business? Did I tell you that one? I told you earlier.
Maybe.
Told us earlier,
I told you earlier
Yeah.
about the takeaway thing or whatever. It
Yeah.
was, always, if you take care of your business or your building or whatever over the years, then it'll take care of you later.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's an asset you're creating.
You're creating an asset.
Yeah.
There's not a liability, right?
Right.
There's a liability in the first bit
Yeah. It
until
can
you
be.
pay off that debt,
Right.
and then it becomes an asset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time out to chat with
Yeah.
us today. I really
appreciate it,
appreciate it.
man. Yeah.
Super insightful. You brought a lot of really prominent things to light, which I really appreciate. Johnny, do you have any last questions for Kevin?
No, just appreciate you coming and be able to do it here on my patio. It's pretty awesome.
Well, Steady Brook, I mean,
That's-
God's country,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Yeah, it is beautiful here.
Yeah.
You're very fortunate to have a space here. And for anyone who doesn't know, Johnny has an Airbnb in Steady Brook. Absolutely beautiful, right at the base of Marble Mountain. So come check it out. You can find him on Airbnb. Kevin, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for having me.
Right on, buddy.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.